Hey there, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about cornerstones and capstones. This is a super easy exercise that you'll be able to apply to your clients, to your friends, to your potential relationships all around. This is a really easy exercise, but I'm telling you what, it packs a real punch in terms of being able to really learn a lot about a person just by observing two different letters. So let's go and take a look at that. So cornerstones, what exactly is a cornerstone? So it's aptly named. The cornerstone is the first letter of the first name as it was published on the birth certificate. The numerology cornerstone letter represents the energy, or the vibration if you like, that most influences how a person approaches their life. So you can tell a lot about a person just by knowing what their first letter is of their first name. So the cornerstone offers us clues as to how a person approaches both opportunities and also obstacles and limitations in their lives. So by examining that cornerstone, you can discover if a person approaches their life from a positive, maybe a little bit more of an optimistic viewpoint, or maybe they're a little bit more serious about the way they look at life. Maybe they have a bit better of a sense of humor. It can all be told by simply looking at that first letter of their first name. So understanding the cornerstone allows us to meet them where they're at. So, if somebody comes in with a cornerstone of an M, okay, so the cornerstone M vibrates at the number 4. So we know that the 4 energy is somebody who's a little bit more serious, right? They kind of like to get to the point. They don't like to dance around things. They're very, matter of fact. Everything's kind of black and white to them. So they're the kind of people that, I'm not saying they don't have a sense of humor, but I am saying that they are people who probably take a more of a task approach to their lives. They like a plan. They like to know what's going on. Security is important to them. They don't mind change so much, but they like to kind of be in control of the change, things like that. So knowing if you know what the number is of the first letter of the first name, you'll know how to approach that person a little bit better. Likewise, if somebody comes in and their cornerstone is a C. The C starts with the letter 3. So you know that this person has a bit more of a sense of humor, might be a little bit more approachable, a little bit more flexible than that of somebody with a 4. Okay, so this gives you a really good idea on how you can kind of temper your own behavior with people so that you can meet them where they're at. So how could knowing a cornerstone number assist you in your business? Well, the cornerstone offers really great clues as to how a person approaches the opportunities and the obstacles in their workplace, but also in their personal lives, in their relationships and such. It just gives you an idea of how they operate, how they think, what's their go-to kind of thing, what's their personality like, so to speak. It will identify whether they're a team player, somebody who wants to hang out with more than one person, but prefers sort of the smaller group. Those people with that kind of a cornerstone probably vibrate in the number 2. So that would be B's, K's, and T's, right? Those are the ones that enjoy working one-on-one. They like being team players. Whereas if you had somebody with a cornerstone of a 3, which would be a C, L, or U, you know that these people really enjoy the group dynamic. They're really good that way. They're very social. So it'll identify team players, and sometimes people who prefer to work more independently. So if you've got somebody with an A, a J, or an S as the cornerstone, you know that these guys are leaders, right? Because that all vibrates at the number 1. So it gives you some clues and some ideas with regards to what they like, what they don't like, what their personality is going to be like, just how they approach life in general. And it really helps to identify their interests as well. So if you have somebody who has a cornerstone of an E, an N, or a W, that vibrates at the 5. So you know that these guys are the ones that are up for anything, right? They live in the moment. They just want to, spend their money and go. Let's just do it, right? They're very lively. They love travel. They love to experience things through learning, that sort of thing. We can also look at what their priorities are. So if you have somebody who vibrates the vibration of the number 8, right? You know that that person is likely going to be someone who is a hard worker, who likes money, likes nice things, likes quality. Don't bother trying to sell them something that's less than really good quality. Like, you'll just offend them, right? Because they have a certain idea of what it is they like. So these are just some things that you can tell from looking at that cornerstone. So now we're looking at capstones. So what exactly is a capstone? Well, the cornerstone is the first letter of the first name published on the birth certificate, and the capstone is the last letter. So if you think about it, the cornerstone is how do people approach things, And the capstone is kind of how do people finish things. All right, so it's because it's sort of it's the last letter, right? So it kind of encases the whole word. So it describes the way people are most likely going to complete projects or tasks. And it also talks about how they finalize personal affairs in their lives as well. So the capstone letter is the last letter of a person's name. Now, for example, the capstone letter for David John Smith is the letter D, because D is the last letter of the first name, okay? The numerology capstone letter represents energy related to the cap or the final act of projects, tasks, goals that they're pursuing, personal business and relationships as well. So now when we're looking at the cornerstone and the capstone, it really is best if we can examine the letters related to the first letter and the last letter of the first name as it appears on the birth certificate. But I also understand that many people abbreviate their names. So for example, somebody who was born with the name Elizabeth would have a cornerstone of an E, okay? So the E relates to the number 5. So you know this is an experiential learner. This is someone who really enjoys getting out there and trying new things and is a little bit adventurous and really loves their freedom. However, quite often the name Elizabeth is reduced to the name Betty. Okay, so in this case, Betty starts with the letter B, which vibrates at the energy of the number 2, which is a very different vibration, right? The 2 is not quite so apt to be out there with the large groups and whatnot. They prefer one-on-one interactions. They're kind of sensitive, you know, they're very intuitive, that sort of thing. So what I would do in that case is I would explore both ways. I would look at the E that comes from the birth certificate, but I would also look at the B, which is the commonly used vibration, okay? Because sometimes you'll find it just fits better. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not about us being right. It's about making sure that we can have our clients, our friends, our family, whatever, identify what feels right for them. So, but these are clues, right? It's not so much about what we're going to feed to somebody else, but it's more about what can we learn about somebody, especially, you know, as we're relating to potential clients. How are we going to handle this client so that they have a really positive experience with us? How do we, you know, how do they like to be served? How do they like to be taken care of when they come into your business? Do they, you know, would they want to be in a large room full of people, or do you know that you have to kind of take them away and put them in a sort of a quieter spot to interact with them? These are things that you can tell by looking at the capstones and the cornerstones. So how could knowing a capstone number assist you in your business? Well, for some people, completing tasks may seem less exciting than beginning them, or the anticipation of beginning them. So, you know, my brother's a really good case in point here. His first name on his birth certificate relates to the letter S, okay, which is the number 1. So he loves to start things, right? He loves to get things going. His last letter of his first name published on the birth certificate is a Y. So that's the 7. Okay, so the cornerstone in this case is the 1. Okay, that's the self-starter, the guy that really wants to be the entrepreneur and get things going and whatnot. But the last letter, the capstone in this case, is a Y. So that's a 7. So sometimes he overthinks things. Sometimes he's not able to kind of put it together. He gets a little paralyzed by being stuck in his head. So he doesn't often finish what he starts. He's a big dreamer, you know, and he loves to start things, but he doesn't always like to finish them. He'd prefer to get them started and then sell the business and let someone else handle it. Okay, so that's indicative of his first name being Stanley. So for others, the energy represented by their capstone letter resonates with a prospect of making a big production or a celebration when it's accomplished. You know, they just love when it's all done and said and done and it's all over with, right? Just depends on what that letter is. So in the case of myself, I mean, my cornerstone is an A, which is the vibration for number 1. Okay, so I do like to start things. I like things to be original. I like to be the initiator. I like to be the leader. All those sorts of things, very indicative of my cornerstone. But my capstone is an N, which is a 5. So that says that sometimes I can be a little scattered, right? Sometimes I'll start things and I'll get it all going and whatnot, but I don't necessarily complete it because I get bored, right? Because the 5 has a tendency to get bored. So someone like, let's see, what other name could we use? Sam. Okay, so the cornerstone will be an S. Once again, that's the 1. S vibrates at the 1, so that's the person who likes to get things started. They're original, they're unique, they're kind of quirky in some ways. They like to be on top of their game. They want to be first out of the gate. How do they finish projects? Well, it's an M. His name is Sam. So the M relates to the number 4. So this is somebody who's probably got a better chance at finishing what they start because they like to take one step after the other. They like the whole planning process. That makes them feel safe. That lets them feel like they're accomplishing something. Okay, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? I'm hoping that you'll be able to take this information and apply it to your clients and to your friends and to your family so that you'll know a little bit more about them. And, you know, if you're counseling, if you're a life coach or whatever, this might be a really good avenue to start with, that you can basically be able to explain to them what that means to them specifically and how others see them as well. Some people just don't recognize how other people view them. So this is a really good indicator as to that as well. So I hope you found this helpful. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks so much.